Hello folks, it is time for some more 40k rantage. I am on my own today for the first time in a little while, so I decided to try something new, and that is setting up a subject for us to cover when we do get together with other YouTubers so I can ask them all the same kind of questions so we can get some continuity of people's opinions, because right now we are in a very pivotal time in the Warhammer 40,000 community, at least in my opinion. And that is, as Mordy and Glory said the other day on our joint video together, 10th edition is in its dying days now. It's kind of coming towards the end of its cycle. All right, we're winding down towards 11th edition. At least we're on the downward slope now. All right, there's still like a year left, I think. You know, we won't be seeing anything 11th edition until about next year, but or maybe even this summer. I don't know. But anyway, I think we'll be seeing rumblings of 11th edition before the end of the year, so we are definitely downwards towards that timeline now. So I thought it would be very pertinent to sit down and discuss the next 5 years, because the next 5 years, in my opinion, will define the hobby of Warhammer 40,000 basically forever. That's where we are now. We are at the crux, we're at the changing of the guard, the turning point. That's where we are. The keystone, right? The last decade from 2015 to now has been about Games Workshop trying to mantle Warhammer 40,000 into the public zeitgeist to make it mainstream part of the furniture of being a nerd. And let's be honest, 40k has always been a bit niche, right? It's never been on the same level as a Star Wars or even a Star Trek. But with the explosion of meme culture, Reddit and Twitch, video games and all other sorts of things that have been really ramping up in popularity over the past 20 years, Games Workshop have done a fantastic job recently of capitalising on that rise and being among the most forward-thinking companies when it comes to marketing their hobby to the outsiders. Right? They've done something very clever. They've seen where gaming is going. They've seen that nerddom is exploding, right? They saw the explosion of D&D and how that became extremely popular. They saw that, and they marketed themselves to those people, right? And who are those people? Well, most of them are not fans of grim darkness, right? A lot of them aren't. A lot of normies, I know. It's really difficult for us to get a grip of, as people who do like the grim dark, right? A lot of you will. But we are in the minority. Most people out there find Grimdark a bit too rough around the edges to get into, right? They look at a Space Marine daubed in the Black Templar's livery, and they kind of go, ooh, no, I'll watch something else, or I'll do something else. Games Workshop have done an extremely good job of sanding down those edges, making it not as, spiky as it used to be, and edging away the grimdark to attract more people, attract more of those other fandoms. Now, these aren't casuals, and a lot of people call them casuals or tourists. I don't think they are. These are nerds who like other things. Magic the Gathering, Dungeons and Dragons, Star Trek, Star Wars, right? Those guys, yeah, there'll be a certain niche in those fan bases that like more hard-edged, grimdark things, but they are in the minority. If you're going to appeal to the majority of those people, you want your campaign setting, or your setting in general, to be as not edgy as possible, right? You want to sand down those edges, get rid of the demonculabra, all that kind of stuff, get it out the window. The issue is, with Games Workshop being so ravenous for new eyes and people, they tend to forget the ones they already have. This has always been a problem for Games Workshop. I am talking about the last 25 years. Dude, if you talk to an old greybeard, when 2nd edition came around, they will think that, oh my god, you'll hear the same things. You'll hear, oh my god, the game's going so casual now, like it's not as crunchy as it used to be. It's more of a war game now than an RPG. That's not good. I don't like that, right? They're trying to appeal to a larger audience. They're pricing us out. They're getting rid of us, right? That's been a thing every couple of editions since the inception of Warhammer 40k. Ask anybody, especially the guys who were there, even the guys who made the game, right? There is a really good YouTuber online called Filmdeg, right? Filmdeg. And he does a lot of interviews with people like Rick Priestley, and they've And he's said multiple times that, they would have this argument from fans every couple of years where, the game's changing, you're leaving us behind. This isn't a new phenomenon. That's what I need you to understand, right? I know a lot of us feel like Games Workshop are moving away from us, and they're making sure that things are sanded down, that they're not as edgy, that they're not as grimdark, that they're not as 40k Blanchian, John Blanchian, as they used to be. And we're all feeling kind of betrayed by that. But this is not new behaviour. Games Workshop have always gone where the money is. Always. This is not new. They did it with Rogue Bloody Trader. It's always been a problem. I'm talking about the last 25 years, maybe plus. This has always been a problem. Games Workshop do not value their own customer base, especially those who are long-time hobby enthusiasts. This is because the money they will bring in will always be around. Most will never truly leave the hobby they love, even though they may have a hiatus here and there, they always come back. I mean, dude, I'm as guilty as this as anybody, right? This company put me through some really dark times to the point that looking at a Space Marine would make me cringe and turn my stomach and genuinely ruin my day. Now, I have a poster of several Grey Knights and other Space Marines on my wall behind me, and my shelves are full to bursting with Games Workshop-styled models of all shapes and sizes, right? You may leave for a while, but you always come back, and you always bring your wallet with you. Have you ever gotten to the hobby through cycles? You know what I mean. If you're in your 30s or in your 20s and you're male, and I know most of you are, right? Have you ever gotten into the hobby through cycles? What I mean by that is, when you're in college, you have a certain amount of money, and you exhaust that money, right? So you're in there, you're having fun, you get into the hobby a little bit, but you can't really afford it, so you drop it, right? And you go away, you're on a hiatus for a while. Then you get your first job, right? You get your first paycheck, you get some more models, you get back into the hobby again. And after a while, you sort of hit that ceiling again, because you're not at your earning potential yet, and, the hobby outpaces you in terms of price, so you leave it again. And eventually, you come back to it and you stay. Because now you have a job that can afford to maintain this hobby, right? This is what I mean. You will always be around, because it's not Games Workshop that you're a fan of. You're a fan of Warhammer 40,000. There's two different things there. That's just how it is, right? Okay. Yeah, the money will always be there, and you will always come back. I mean, again, as I said, I've got more reason to walk away than most, and I still came back, eventually, right? The foundation has been set, though, and that is my point. They have been putting in the foundational work to make sure that they are a part of the general hobby, the general nerd zeitgeist, right? 40k now has a seat at the big boys table. Companies like Disney and others are now starting to notice the growing market share of Games Workshop in terms of being a minor but still relevant player in the public mind. When companies like Amazon are approaching you to make feature-length films and animations on your properties, you are sitting at the big boy table whether your fans like it or not. And over the past 10 years, from 2015 to 2025, that has been the aim, and Games Workshop have been very successful in cracking that. It's kind of like when a band wants to crack the States, right? Like the Beatles, and I think, like, God forbid Robbie Williams is ever relevant again, but yeah, said it a few times when he tried to break into America, didn't really work, and it's a big regret of his, right? Well, this is the Games Workshop type of thing that they're doing, right? This is their style of that. They've broken the normies. They're now at that big boy table. And over the next 5 years, we're now going to see where their company is going to go and what kind of direction they're going to go in. Games Workshop has learned from video games. Microtransactions, FOMO, fear of missing out sales, subscription services. Most of these ideas have been poorly implemented, but they are there. Again, Games Workshop have this amazing alacrity for seeing a very cunning idea by other companies and adopting it, but really badly. Right? The next 5 years will see Games Workshop lean further into this model, in my opinion, right? They will push more of us to Warhammer Plus for convenience, if nothing else, but will offer relatively little new to entice us over to that medium and then wonder why we don't buy it. Games Workshop are a mom-and-pop deli trying to run themselves like a Subway. They use the same tactics as massive companies, but don't have the deviousness and cunning to pull them off. And I mean that as a compliment, by the way. A lot of the dudes working the Games Workshop, again, the guys who make the decisions to embrace FOMO, fear of missing out, to raise the prices way above industry standard, way above what they should be, right? The guys making those decisions aren't the guys implementing them, right? The guys implementing these ideas are genuinely very nice people. They're normal people, right? They're not devious people. They're not people who are like bankers. They're not there, twiddling their thumbs. They are not Mr. Burns from The Simpsons, right? These are normal dudes like me and you who don't know how to be devious, and they don't know how to hook us all onto the Warhammer app, right? They're not cunning enough to pull it off. A company like Xbox or Disney would flood their streaming service with the value that they already possess, at no extra cost to them. Films, TV series, video game libraries, and then whack up the price accordingly. A Games Workshop equivalent would be them basically realising that, hey, this codec system isn't working, let's make it all for free, but on the Warhammer Plus app. If we do that, we can double the price of the Warhammer app overnight, and not many people will complain. That's what a very, very good company that are very good at doing this kind of thing will do. Because in fact, that will save Games Workshop money, because they don't need to print as many codexes anymore, right? And they will make more money. This is what I mean. Other companies, Xbox, Disney, people like that, even Amazon, they already have these vast libraries, this perpetual worth that they've got. All these movies they've got in their back catalogue, they're just sitting there gathering dust. If we put them on the streaming service, we can earn money off them infinitum, like into the future. It never ends. It's a constant stream of money that we can get for no extra cost to ourselves. If Games Workshop had brains, or were able to be that devious and cunning, they could have done this. But they don't. Games Workshop will add relatively little and still whack up the price of Warhammer Plus and other things, riding out fan backlash as they do, because they know they have a captive audience and they know you're not going to go anywhere. I believe this is their direction for the next crucial 5 years. They will expand into the tournament scene, taking 40k away from casual play to a more manageable, universal, esports style of game about crunching numbers and great plays. They will continue to drip feed releases, keeping the codec system that is extremely outdated as the main source of rules for factions, outdating them within weeks of their publication with changes and tweaks that you can find online. This, instead of being seen as a failure though, will be seen as a triumph of Games Workshop listening, quote-unquote, by the masses. Any range refresh that does arrive will have less options in the box and less models in the box, but they will look more detailed and larger scale. Why? Not because it looks good on your shelf, but because it's easier to pick up on camera at live tournaments. We are entering into the golden age of tournament play for those who enjoy this side of the hobby. The rest of us will be looking for something else to do in 2030. Now, again, there are two key points here that I want to bring up that kind of go with this. If you are a tournament player, then I'm really happy for you that you're going to have your game, you're going to have your cake and eat it over the next 5 years. Games Workshop have absolutely maintained their direction of travel in that they are going to make sure that tournament players are well seated, and that, by the way, you don't need to run games in stores anymore, right? Do you know why? Because running games in stores is not as convenient or as economic as running a tournament on Twitch and having 30 to 50,000 people watching it every single time as an esport. What are you going to get in terms of foot traffic, even in a large British city, walking past Games Workshop? And of those people, how many of them are going to be amenable to the hobby and not just see it as something that they're not into, right? Again, it's a very low number, right? You're looking at around maybe 1,000, 2,000 people a day if you're lucky. That's if you're in a big city, right? And again, obviously, if you're in London, more people than that are walking past your window. I get that. But I'm talking to people who might be interested in doing the hobby, who might want to come inside and check it out. You're looking at about 5 to 10%, let's be honest, of those people walking past. So yeah, you're looking at about 2,000 to 3,000 people if you're lucky. Every single stream you do when tournaments on Twitch has double, treble, quadruple, maybe even more than that watching every single match that's on there. And not all of these people will be veterans. Not all of these people will be people who are already in the hobby. There will be a lot of people who've seen this Warhammer thing, and they're already gamers, So they're already nerds, and they're already susceptible to Games Workshop showing them really cool stuff. And saying, hey, here's some games that are being played live on Twitch. Look at these bits of terrain. Look at where we're playing it. This is what the hobby is, right? It's far more economical for Games Workshop to not have games in stores. Why? Because Twitch does that heavy lifting for them without them needing to run intro games, without them needing to have people coming in off the street and taking up valuable retail space. And by the way, if you don't have games in stores, your stores can get smaller, and that saves you yet more money on storage space, on people who need to run these games that need to pay for their time, and also store space. Your rent goes down, right? Moving gaming to be tournament only makes complete economic sense to Games Workshop. And by the way, this is as a non-tournament person. I am a fluffy person. I am a story-focused person. I love fluffy games, casual games. That's where I live. And even I will tell you, tournament games will make a lot more money than casual games, right? You know, I'd prefer they had the best of both worlds so they can make all of the money, right? But if you can only have one, and you want to make money, tournaments are the way to go. Why? Because you dictate how much those models are worth. Because everybody wants to go into a tournament and wants to do well at a tournament. If you dictate how much the models are worth, you can decide their power level, you can decide what they're going to be good at and what they're not going to be good at. You can decide what lists are being brought to a tournament and what models you want to sell simply by the rules that they have in their codex, or their electronic codex, as the case may be, going forwards, right? You get to decide. You dictate the pace. That's who you are as Games Workshop if you do this. That is why, casual people, you either need to have your own hobby, do your own thing with Games Workshop stuff, or you need to go and find something else to do. I've elected to do the former, right? I use Games Workshop's models, I use third-party models, I mix them together, and I play one-page rules. Or I play 3rd edition. Those are the two things that I play, right? Because I really enjoy them. That's what I've chosen to do. Now, it may take you a bit more work to get your community together, it can suck at times, but that's the world we live in, and Games Workshop are not going to change for the reasons I've already laid out. But if you are a tournament player over the next 10 to 15 years, my god, you are going to be sated, you're going to be having such fun, and I applaud you for that, and I really wish you all the best in having your fun with the current meta of Games Workshop. Now, beside that, what does leaning into esports do for Games Workshop? Well, it makes them mainstream, right? Because you can't really be an esport on the front page of Twitch if you have all of those edgy pieces that a game like 40k used to have. Not even the Demonculabra, but, you know, the Night Lords trilogy, you know, for instance, that was really grim. There was slavery in it, there was absolutely people being, like, you know, chopped to pieces left, right, and centre. The Night Lords being absolute cretins for the entire 3 books, as they are wont to do. Now, this is what they are. This is how it's grungy, it's gritty, and that's why people absolutely loved it. But you can't really market that to a passerby on Twitch, right? It's hard to get into. And I've noticed this with lore channels as well. The amount of lore channels out there that no longer really celebrate or look at the real grim part of 40k. And the ones that do, now this is a funny phenomenon, the ones that do tend to have, like, Eastern European accents. Do you know what I mean? Like Grimdark Narrator, right? Like, he will focus on some really dark stuff from 40k. And, you know, and people in the West, Western Europe, we don't really cover that anymore, right? We're always doing massive, awesome videos on characters like Azrael and Dante and Eisenhorn and whoever else, right? We look at the themes behind the lore. Live from the Black Library does a really good job of that, right? He looks at the lore really in depth and pulls it apart and in a philosophical kind of way. He even examines, like, what kind of mental illnesses do certain Primarchs have? Does Erebus have any certain mental illnesses? Yeah, he does, actually, by the way. But anyway, like, yeah, these are all really interesting videos, but they're stepping away from the core grimdark nature of what 40k is, right? It's becoming this larger zeitgeist thing than it never used to be, because a high tide raises all ships, and even though these dudes are steeped in the grimdark nature of 40k, if Games Workshop dictate the actual commentary of the game and the setting and what it's going to be and what it isn't going to be. Even if you really like grimdark stuff, your own narrative, the way you talk about 40k will change. It will, right? It's only natural. It will. We're starting to see that sea change right now. Now, am I saying we need the Monkey Labra and things? No. I've always been a campaigner that you don't need squick, right? There is a difference between grim darkness and squick. Squick is something that is just there in bad taste. You know, it's not a very good thing. You don't really want to be looking at it. You know, it's there. It's meant you go, ugh. You know, but it doesn't serve any other purpose other than that. Grimdark is something different, right? It's something that makes you think. It's something that makes you appreciate the massive scale of this universe and how much it doesn't care about you in the Warhammer 40,000 universe. The literal central node of you will not be missed, right? Until Games Workshop ruined that with their own political, you know, crying and postulating and virtue signalling. Before they ruined that line for everybody, it was a central theme of 40k. You will not be missed. It is going to be an absolute place where, you know, bad things are happening, and, you know, go fuck yourself. That's where we are. And the minute we started moving forward in time, we started to lose that. And I think 40k had a reset, and I said this to Morty and Glory and to What the 40k, and I've said this to Outer Circle as well on all of our joint videos. Thank you guys for doing those with me. We've had the reset already. 40k's had the end times. They've happened, they've come and gone, right? The end times was the Great Rift. It was Cadia being destroyed, it was the Great Rift, and it was Guilliman coming back. That was the reset. That was the reset in the scope, in the feel, and in the stories of Warhammer 40,000. The grim darkness of the far future died with Cadia. Okay? And that was a conscious decision Games Workshop made to start moving Games Workshop and Warhammer 40,000 more into the public eye, more into the, you know, wider zeitgeist of nerddom, to shave down those rougher edges, to kill off the characters that remind us of that time, and to redo things again with a new lick of paint. Look at Armageddon, right? Yarrick isn't coming back, the Steel Legion aren't there, the Orcs aren't there. Instead, Angron is back, and they're redoing the first war for Armageddon. And they're not even mentioning the other wars for Armageddon in most of their promotional material. Why? Because in their minds, they've reset the setting, and this is the first war for Armageddon. Right? They may not say it out loud, but they don't talk about the first 3-4 wars for Armageddon. They don't talk about them. They don't call this the fourth, do they? They just call it the War for Armageddon. They've already reset things, dudes. They did it and you didn't even notice. Most of you didn't even notice. 40k isn't 40k anymore. And I'm so glad I did this video again, because the last time I did a video like this was like last year, and I just didn't get my points down correctly. I didn't really hit the nail on the head until I've been able to speak to my peers on YouTube and bounce ideas off of them and actually come back and go, actually, yeah, that's what it is. I've crystallized my thoughts. I already had these thoughts, but I couldn't get them out. That's why me doing more videos with other YouTubers is really helping me find my voice and really helping me in my argumentative style on what I think about things. So that's what I think in terms of where Warhammer 40,000 will go in the next 5 years, and why I think the next 5 years will be absolutely imperative to the success of the project that Games Workshop has going on. And I hope you've noticed that I've not really framed this as a positive or negative thing. I've simply framed it as a thing that Games Workshop are going to do. This is where they're going to go, for better or for worse. This is what I believe their, not tactics, but their end goals lie, right? So what do you reckon? Hit me up in the description and the comment section down below. I love you a long time. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll speak to you tomorrow for some more hobby nightmares. Alright, have a good one. Bye now.